There are executives from top luxury brands around the world here today. We've got Four Seasons, Gucci, Chanel, and many, many more. They're here to talk about how they're using digital marketing to reach a changing consumer in a changing marketplace. And I'm here today with Scott Galloway, who's running this forum. He's also an associate professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business and a luxury expert. Thanks so much for joining us, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
You recently did a study about how brands are performing relative to their digital strategies, and you have this thing called digital genius, and brands like Coach, Louis Vuitton, Ralph Lauren, they have it. What are they doing right, and what do they have in common?
Well, first off, they have a culture of innovation that allows for failure. We call it failing forward, and that is they realize that it's not like opening a store on Fifth Avenue where there are huge barriers of exit. If you make a bad decision, it's going to cost you, it's going to be a 10-year mistake. They're innovating and taking chances. They're doing interesting things in terms of social media. They're willing to let people tweet on behalf of the company and speak. They're sort of putting aside a traditional command and control mentality that luxury brands have had for a long time. They're saying, let's get out there, let's engage and have a relationship with our consumer base. Whereas traditionally luxury brands have been very, very conservative about who can speak about the brand, the voice, the format. So I would say critical to almost any innovation, it's not different in luxury. They're taking risks and they're learning and they're iterating.
On the flip side, you've criticized brands like Cartier and Rolex for being digitally challenged. What are they doing wrong, and how is it hurting their business?
It's not so much that they're doing anything wrong. They're just not doing much of anything online. You get the sense that, and without getting into specifics, but especially in the watch and jewelry categories that seem to be very, very challenged, it's as if they're family controlled, a little bit more insular, don't have pesky shareholders or analysts to ask them questions about their internet strategy, and reflect a certain mentality that they're hoping the whole internet thing will just go away. And they don't sell online, which makes them less digitally enabled, because it's the equivalent of having a billboard online with flash-heavy sites as opposed to a store where you're learning and interacting around your consumers. So it's not so much what they're doing incorrectly, it's the fact that they're just not doing.
And one of the things you've talked about is that consumers, while they may not necessarily buy a luxury watch or a ring or jewelry online, they're doing research online to make those decisions.
Well, think about the last time you purchased a car, right? We don't buy cars online, but effectively dealerships no longer sell cars. They're just a distribution center that delivers or fulfills the car. We basically make all the purchase decisions online. We look at the brands, we look at the options, we price it, we look for user reviews, and then we see approximately how much we should spend for it. We go into the dealership and say, this is exactly what I want. So when you look at, think about, when you talk about purchases, especially once you get above $500,000, $700,000 purchases, once you get into that altitude, people have a tendency to want to go online and look at the brand and look at what other users are saying.
Holiday season is coming up. Will consumers be willing to spend on luxury?
Oh, the rumors of the death of luxury have been greatly exaggerated. As long as we want that self-expressive benefit to say to people this is what we're about, as long as we want to demonstrate our success, as long as we want to be attractive to the other sex, luxury is going to be around for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, year on year, luxury is up 10%, so luxury is doing very well.
You're a media investor as well, and you're a big believer that consumers should be willing to pay for online content. The New York Times is here, Hearst Magazine is here, the New York Times starting a paywall in January. Hearst charges for its mobile applications. Do you think these models will work when there's such a proliferation of blogs and online content for free?
I think it's going to be a painful road, but I think it will work. And at the end of the day, we probably, and I say the collective we as people who are involved in media companies, we train the consumer to expect free content, and we had a very large search engine out there proselytizing this notion that information should be free, right? Or information wants to be free, but meanwhile we need to pay for intentions. But consumers value great content, and I think that ultimately when some of the better content goes behind a wall, I think slowly but surely we're going to retrain consumers that it costs money to have a bureau in Iraq. It costs money to have investigative journalism. It costs money to have world-class reporters and infrastructure out there doing world-class reporting. And I think consumers have shown a willingness. You look at the Wall Street Journal, the FT, even WWD. These are great brands with differentiated content that people are paying for. So yes, I've drank the Kool-Aid. I do think that it's going to work.
We just had an election this week. You also recently did a study about politicians and their social media strategy, and you concluded that Republicans have better social media skills than Democrats. What are Republicans doing better, and did that impact the results this week?
Well, it's interesting. We looked at the winners on Tuesday, and you could predict 70% of the races if you just went to the Facebook pages of the candidates and saw who had the most likes. So probably the earliest indicator of who's going to win a race now is just who has more likes on Facebook. The Republicans seem to be engaging more aggressively because I think they've taken this attitude where they're the underdog, so they can, again, take more risks and be more innovative, and then have been much more aggressive about establishing social media following. So when you think about this notion of renting voters online or with a radio ad as opposed to establishing a direct relationship with them, maybe convincing people that you value their voice, giving them the chance to get involved, rally them. You know, it's interesting that the Republicans are doing better than this, because what they've really done is they've taken a page out of Obama's playbook. Because, if you will, Obama Inc. was the first organization in the world to really untap the power of the social web.
All right, Scott Galloway, marketing professor, NYU. Thank you so much for joining us.